Okay. The Lambdoma is the key. Well, before I start talking about the Lambdoma, let me give an explanation and understanding of what spirit is and what soul is and what body is. An easy layman's term explanation of those esoteric principles, and at the same time giving a understanding of passive versus active, and because those two terms you hear a lot about as well, esoterically. So, art. The artist is spirit. The art, the paint, the sculpture, the mediums, the ideals, the concepts themselves are soul, and the finished product or the art is body. That's something that's tangible and easily visualized, where individuals can now understand spirit, soul, and body, so that they can use them and apply them going forth. Passive and active. Once again, the artist acts, and the canvas, the clay, the musical components, whatever the medium is, that's the passive. So the artist acts upon the medium to create music, art, sculptures, paintings, whatever it may be. And this is also the concept of the male and the female, the masculine and the feminine. So those principles, when it's talking esoterically that you're both masculine and feminine, this is what it's referring to. It's not referring to men needing to be extra sensitive, although that does have a part to do with it if you understand the Lambdoma. Now the Lambdoma. The Lambdoma is, of course, a numerical practice, starting with 1 at the top, 2 on the left. On the next line is 2 on the left and 3 on the right. On the next line below that is 4 on the left, there's 6 in the middle, 9 on the right, and the line below that on the left, far left, is 8. On the middle left is 12. On the middle right is 18. And on the far right is 27. Now, understanding these numbers and also another corresponding tetractys, which is the Alchemical tetractys, helps you to understand your being, but more importantly, how your being works, so that you can understand how it works, so that you can have dominion over self, which is, of course, the goal of all esoteric teachings. So, before I explain the numbers, let's go over the alchemical symbols. Now, at the top is where 1 would be. many different symbols can be used. Common is a circle with a plus sign in the side of it, a horizontal and a vertical. Excuse me. Sometimes various other things. I myself have a unique design, but that's another story. Next, on the second line, where excuse me, on the left side, where 2 is the moon, Luna. On the right, where 3 is sun, point within the circle, symbol of the sun. On the line below that, on the far left, you have a circle with a horizontal line in it, which is salt. We're in the middle where 6 is located. You have the symbol of Mercury, which is, of course, a crescent surmounting a circle, surmounting a cross, plus sign. Next to that, on the right, that's Mercury, of course. It's a symbol of Mercury, so it's the alchemical Mercury as well. Next to that, on the right, you have, of course, where 9 would be, you have a sulfur. And this, you have an upward pointing triangle surmounting a cross. And again, that line, it represents salt, sulfur, and mercury. Or in this case, salt, mercury, and sulfur. The next line below that, you have a series of triangles representing, of course, the elements. So, first you have a downward pointing, on the far left, where the number 8 is, you have a downward pointing triangle with a line drawn through it. That, of course, represents Earth. Next to it, where number 12 would be, is a downward pointing triangle with no line drawn through it. That represents water. Next to it, where 18 would be, you have a upward pointing triangle with a line drawn through it. That represents air. And, of course, that's where number 18 is. And finally, where the number 27 is located, the very far right, you have an upward pointing triangle with no line drawn through it. Okay. That is the alchemical tetractys. Now, here's what those things mean specifically. At the very top, whatever your symbol is whatever you want. It could be the Most High. It could be an object of manifestation. It could be anything and everything in between and beyond. Whatever it is that you want or desire to focus upon. And the reason why is because this is we're talking about a dynamic of the creative process, so it works all ways, infinite ways. It's incorrect to say both ways because it's not linear, although sometimes it would appear to be so. So that is why it can be both the Most High and a inanimate object, for instance, or a particular feeling, desired result, outcome, prayer. Next, the moon on the left represents, of course, the subconscious, while the sun represents the conscience. The feminine, the masculine. Very simple. My waking thoughts, you're listening to my voice right now, hearing me, that's your conscious processing this, just like it's my consciousness that's dictating it. pause and reflect and let the words reverberate, that's the feminine side taking over. And notice that when I'm talking, I'm being active, and when you're listening, you're being active. But when we stop at that point, we're being a little bit passive, even though there is some activity as far as thinking is concerned. But we haven't gotten to that level yet. We're still at the very top of the subconscious and the conscious, the masculine and the feminine. The next line below that, we have, of course, salt, mercury, and sulfur. Now, these three are symbolic, have so many symbolic meanings, it's literally impossible for me to cover them all. Try to give you a few, and by that, and with your own discovery, you'll be able to better comprehend these particular symbols. Salt, mercury, sulfur. Past, present, future. Salt, mercury, sulfur. Stable, flux, change, and the potential of being changed, and then new state or change. You know, kind of like the past, present, and future, but with, you know, ideals or objects. These are those things. The next level below that are, of course, the elements: earth, water, air, and fire. Earth being sensual, feeling. Excuse me, not feelings. That is incorrect. Sensing and senses. Yes, it's tied to the physical, but not everything is physical, but those things that vibrate on a different level than physicality also can have sensing. Challenging to explain. Hey, that's why we use symbols. Next, you have water, which is actually emotions, feelings. That's why I said previously it was incorrect to say the feelings, and it was sensing. This is emotions and feelings. Water. Perfect analogy for emotions and feelings. Next, you have air, and undoubtedly air is and represents thoughts and what we think. See, we make the mistake that everything that we do is thinking and thought, and that's not necessarily true, because our brain processes thoughts, and it's very similar to sometimes emotions and also senses. And of course, the next one, which is the very far right, what 27 is fire, and that is intuition, desire, a good analogy of the elements is, of course, their states. You've always been told that earth doesn't actually represent earth, and fire doesn't actually represent fire, and air doesn't actually represent air, and water doesn't actually represent water. That is true. I've already told you what they mean and what they actually represent. But if you consider that earth is representative of, or chemically, or of course this is chemistry, earth is representative of solids, water is representative of liquids, air is representative of gas, and fire is representative of the plasma state. These are 4 states. Or for you old school chemists, fire represents that energy that is able to transmute or change the other 3 states. So if you have an element, then energy or lack of energy, heat, lack of heat, cold, lack of cold, allows an element to transition from a solid to a liquid to a gas. Interestingly, the sublime degree of Master Mason is called the sublime degree because the word sublime is the adjective form of the word sublimation, which is an alchemical process or chemical process, which means passing from a solid state to a gas state without going through the liquid state. In other words, from physical to what represents spiritual, gaseous state or mental state. So, those are the symbols of alchemy. That's how the alchemical tetractys looks, how it works. Well, no, I haven't explained how it works. That's what I'm about to do next, because we have to go back to the numerical and understand how that works, and then take that and apply it to the alchemical to understand how we can control the various aspects of our being that the alchemical tetractys represents. Okay. So back to the numbers. 1, next line 2, 3, next line 4, 6, 9, next line 8, 12, 18, 27. Okay. Well, the key to this is to break the numbers down into the components of the mother and the father. 1 is 1. It's everything. It's united. It's the Most High. It's the jumping off point. 2 being feminine and 3 being masculine, mother and father, they have children. And these children are represented on the lower line. Now, get a quick interjection of spatial geometry, right quick. You have a point, a line, a surface, and a solid. These are the dimensions of geometry. A point is that which has no width, length, height, mass. It's just a point. When that point moves, motion, it then comes down to the next level. 1 represents the point, the next level, 2 and 3 represent the line. Because the point is moving, and if you take your finger and you point it in the air, that's the point, and then move it over to wherever, the opposite direction, left, is how I did it, then you draw a line in the air. Okay? Now, if you take that imaginary line and move it down or up, then you have now created a plane, a surface that has length and width. The line has length. The surface has length and width. And now if you take that plane or that surface and then you move it back away from you or towards you, then that plane has now created a box, a solid, or a cube. And so we've gone from a point to a line to a surface to a solid. This is important because this is what the tetractys represents, both numerically and alchemically. Dimensions going from 0 dimension to first dimension, which is the line, second line, 2 and 3, length, to third dimension, which is the next line, 4, 6, 9, which represents surfaces, to the next dimension, which is the third dimension, which represents solids. Now, earlier I said the 1 was a 0 dimension, and that's not really accurate because of how we view 0. We view 0 as above 1, and then before 0 is a whole bunch of negative numbers, and after 0 is a whole bunch of positive numbers. Well, the ancients didn't view it that way. 1 was the supreme number, so it's not correct to say that it was the 0 dimension. It'd probably be correct to say the prime dimension, or the originator, or the origin, or God, or whatever you want to call it. Now, back to the numbers. The key to the numerical lambdoma is breaking it down into 2s and 3s, into its mother and its father. And what we'll find is that we'll find that going down the left leg of the lambdoma, we have those numbers are squared. And going down the right leg, the left leg is the feminine leg, and left side, and the right side is the masculine side. And going down the right side, we have those numbers squared and also cubed. And same thing on the left side. It eventually gets cubed too. Let me show you. 4 is 2 times 2, which is 2 squared. Okay? Over on the far right on that same line, we have the number 9, which is 3 times 3, which is 3 squared. Now, in the middle, we have, between 4 and 9, we have 6, which is 2 times 3. So, in other words, we have salt, purely passive, purely feminine. It's feminine squared. On the far right, we have sulfur, which is masculine. It's masculine squared. And in the middle, we have mercury, which is always considered and represented as the hermaphrodite, both male and female, because it is 2 times 3. It is both subconscious and consciousness. It is the child of both of them. It's got both parts. That's why it's the hermaphrodite. Now, on the next level, we have 8, which is 2 times 2 times 2. It's 2 cubed. Next, we have 12, which is 2 times 2 times 3. That's 2 parts feminine, 1 part masculine. Right? Emotions has 2 parts feminine, 1 part masculine. And again, don't think of male and female as far as, you and your spouse, or you and your partner, or whatever the case may be. You and your friend. We're talking about states of being. Next, 18 is 2 times 3 times 3. So it is 1 part feminine and 2 parts masculine. Thinking is 1 part feminine, 2 part masculine. Thinking is 1 part passive and 2 parts active. That's the way to think of it. Going back to emotions is 2 parts passive and 1 part active. Already, hopefully, you're seeing some insight on how you're going to be able to understand your emotions and be able to control your emotions. But continuing on, the very far right, we have 27. Now, 27 is 3 times 3 times 3. It's 3 cubed. And that's what fire is. It's all masculine. That's what intuition is. It's all active. Sensing is all passive. And there you have it. So when you have the Lambdoma, both the alchemical symbols and the numerical, and you're looking at these numbers, you see amazing things. You start to see the relationship between the numbers, not just how I describe them as point, line, surface, and solid. That in itself is extremely important. But what you see is you start to see a vertical pattern as well, and a duplicate of multiplication. Let me give you an example. 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, they create a little small triangle. 1 at the top, 2 at the bottom, 3 at the bottom, 2 at the bottom left, 3 at the bottom right. Now, if you take those numbers and you go to any other number in the Lambdoma, you'll have the exact same relationship. For example, if I take the 1 and 2 and the 3 and I place it where the 6 and the 12 and the 18 are, then automatically 6 is the 1, 12 would be the 2 because 2 times 6 is 12, and then 18 is where the 3 would be because 3 times 6 is 18. Now this can go as far as you can create Lambdomas. This is an excellent way for multiplication of big numbers and of creation. They all have this little mini relationship. So the hermaphrodite, Mercury, is direct parent of emotions and thinking. Interesting. Because the hermaphrodite's parents are also are feminine and masculine on a higher dimension. Subconscious and conscious, then give birth to hermaphrodite, and hermaphrodite's children, with of course other help, are feelings, emotions, which is mostly feminine, a little bit of masculine, and thoughts, which are mostly masculine, a little bit of feminine. So this is key, because then this gives us the ability to understand and realize that, yes, our emotions can be passive, but there's an active component to them that we as an artist can act upon and control and shape and mold. And same thing with our thoughts. Our thinking is an active process. It's something you have to do. It just doesn't just, pop up. That would be intuition that just pops up. But thinking is an active process. And that intuition popping up, it's not really popping up. It's the fact that your mental ability is so active on a cubic level that amazing thing happens. Let me give it to you this way. Again, we were talking about the Lambdoma, and going down the left side, you've got the square of 2 and then the cube of 2, and then going down the right leg of the Lambdoma, you have the square of 3 and the cube of 3. And again, the square is surface, or length times the width, and a cube is a body, a length times the width times the height. And so going down the feminine side, when we get to 8, we realize that it's feminine cube, it's passiveness cube, and it's earth, and it's solid, giving us a mental and emotional and a visualization, and not to mention a reality of our bodies. Something that you can connect to and feel and touch and understand. Well, the same thing is down the right side. When we have 3 cubed, that's a surface of a masculine and active process. 3 squared, I mentioned. And when we get to 3 cubed 27, it is an active body. So there you have it. And the triumph over the 4 lower bodies, to gain dominion over the 4 lower bodies, is to understand not only and accept as reality and use not only our physical bodies, which all of us do, but understand our active spiritual body as well, that exist same time and space as our physical bodies, but because it's a spiritual body, it has the ability to extend beyond. And so by using these symbols and understanding these processes in practice and developing these vehicles and understanding their relationships, we are able to start to gain dominion over self and then rise above physical bodies to that next state, which is what the esoteric teachings are all about. I hope you have enjoyed this. I hope it has not been too confusing. If you have any questions at all, send me an email. I'll be happy to try to take the time to answer your question to the best of my ability. It may take me a while, but if your question is in earnest, I will endeavor to answer it. You can send that email to lovemegas@gmail.com. That's LOVEMAGUS@gmail.com. Oops. Thanks a lot. Hope it's been enjoyable. Hope I get a chance to hear from you. Hope the Most High blesses you eternally. Thank you. God bless. Love.